The opera house smelled like old velvet and dying roses. Serafina stood backstage, her hands shaking as she touched her throat. The curtain would rise in 10 minutes. 10 minutes until she sang for the most powerful man in Vienna. She did not know he would try to steal her voice. The year was 1847. The city glittered with gaslight and secrets. Serafina was 22 years old, and her voice could make grown men weep. She had sung in small theatres before, but tonight was different. Tonight, a patron had paid an enormous sum to hear her alone. "Miss Serafina?" A stagehand appeared, his face pale. "He's waiting." She smoothed her blue silk gown. It was the finest thing she owned. Her mother had sewn it by hand before she died. The fabric whispered against her skin as she walked toward the stage. The theatre was empty, except for one man. He sat in the center box, draped in shadows. Candlelight caught the edge of his jaw, the pale flash of his hands. He wore black, head to toe. Even from the stage, Serafina could feel his eyes on her. "Sing," he said. His voice was soft, dangerous. Serafina's heart hammered in her chest. She had sung for kings and beggars, but something about this man made her throat tighten. She opened her mouth and let the first note rise. The song was about loss, about love that could not be saved. Her voice filled every corner of the theatre, pure and aching. She closed her eyes and poured everything into the melody. When she finished, silence hung in the air like smoke. Then he stood. "Again," he said. Serafina blinked. "Sir?" "Sing it again." His tone left no room for argument. She sang, and when she finished, he said it again. Again. 3 times, 4, 5. Her throat began to hurt. Sweat gathered at her temples. Still, he watched from the shadows, his expression unreadable. On the 6th time, her voice cracked. "Stop," he commanded. Serafina's chest heaved. She felt exposed under his gaze, like he had seen something inside her she had never shown anyone. He stepped forward into the light. Serafina's breath caught. He was younger than she expected, perhaps 30. His face was sharp and beautiful, in a way that seemed almost cruel. Black hair fell across his forehead. His eyes were the color of storms, grey and restless. But it was his mouth that held her attention. It curved in a way that could have been a smile or a threat. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "Thank you, sir. But it is not enough." The words struck her like a slap. Serafina lifted her chin. "I beg your pardon?" He walked closer, his footsteps echoing. "You sing with your voice, but not with your soul. You hold back." "I hold nothing back," she said, anger rising. "I give everything when I sing." "Liar." The word hung between them. Serafina's hands curled into fists. "Who are you to judge me?" "My name is Damien Vale, and I am the man who owns this theatre." He stopped at the edge of the stage, looking up at her. "I am also the man who can make you the greatest singer in all of Europe." Serafina's pulse quickened. "What?" "I have connections, wealth, influence." His voice was low, hypnotic. "I can give you every stage you have ever dreamed of. Berlin, Paris, London. But only if you give me something in return." "What do you want?" His smile was slow and terrible. "I want your heart." Serafina stared at him. "That's ridiculous." "Not your love," he said softly. "Your passion. The part of yourself you hide when you sing. I want you to stop pretending. Stop being safe. I want you to sing like your life depends on it." "And if I refuse?" "Then you will sing in places like this for the rest of your life." He gestured to the shabby theatre around them. "Small stages, small audiences. You will die with your gift trapped inside you." It felt like he had reached inside her chest and squeezed. Serafina had dreamed of greatness her entire life. She had practiced until her fingers bled, until her voice went hoarse. But no matter how hard she worked, the world kept her at arm's length. Now this stranger was offering her everything. But something about him frightened her. "Why do you care?" she asked. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. Pain, maybe, or hunger. "Because I know what it is to have a gift and waste it," he said, "and I will not let that happen to you." Serafina's throat felt tight. "What do you get out of this?" "I told you. Your heart." He tilted his head. "And perhaps, in time, your trust." "That's all?" "That is everything." She should have walked away. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But when she looked at Damien Vale, she saw something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She saw possibility. "1 month," she said. "Train me for 1 month. If I am not better, I walk away." His smile was like a knife. "Agreed." He extended his hand. Serafina hesitated, then took it. His fingers were cold, but his grip was firm. The moment their skin touched, she felt something sharp and electric race up her arm. Damien's eyes darkened. "Tomorrow, midnight. Come to my estate outside the city." "Midnight?" "I do my best work in the dark." He released her hand and turned, his coat swirling around him like smoke. Before he reached the door, he glanced back. "Do not disappoint me, Serafina." Then he was gone. Serafina stood alone on the stage, her hands still tingling. She did not know what she had agreed to, but she knew, with cold certainty, that her life had just changed forever. She did not know he would try to steal her voice, but someone else did. From the balcony above, hidden in shadow, a figure watched. A woman in a red cloak, her face hidden beneath a hood. She had heard every word, and now she smiled. "Foolish girl," the woman whispered. "He always keeps his promises." Then she too disappeared into the dark. The carriage rattled through the forest like a ghost. Serafina pressed her face to the cold glass, watching trees blur past. It was past midnight. The driver had barely spoken when he picked her up, only nodded and opened the door. Now they were deep in woods she did not recognize. "How much farther?" she called. The driver said nothing. Serafina's stomach tightened. This was a mistake. She should have brought someone with her. But who? She had no family left, no friends who would understand. The carriage turned sharply, and suddenly the trees opened up. Serafina gasped. The estate rose from the darkness like a dream. It was enormous. 3 stories of pale stone, with towers that pierced the sky. Candlelight flickered in a dozen windows. Iron gates stood open, waiting. The carriage stopped at the front steps. Serafina climbed out, clutching her cloak. The air was freezing. Her breath made clouds in the dark. The front door opened before she could knock. Damien stood in the doorway, dressed in a white shirt and black trousers. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he had been working, but his eyes were sharp and awake. "You came," he said. "You doubted me?" "Most people are too afraid." He stepped aside, and Serafina entered. The inside of the estate was even more breathtaking than the outside. The floors were polished marble. Chandeliers dripped with crystal. Paintings lined the walls, dark, beautiful things that seemed to watch her. But there was something strange about the house. It was too quiet. No servants moved through the halls. No voices echoed. "Do you live here alone?" Serafina asked. "I prefer solitude." "It's a big house for one person." "It is a big world for one person." Damien closed the door behind her. "But we do what we must." He led her through winding hallways, past rooms filled with furniture covered in white sheets. Everything felt frozen in time, like the house was holding its breath. Finally, they reached a door at the end of a long corridor. Damien pushed it open. "This is where we will work." Serafina stepped inside and stopped. The room was a music studio. A grand piano sat in the center, its surface gleaming. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books and sheets of music. But what caught her attention was the ceiling. It was painted with stars. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It was my mother's," Damien said quietly. "She was a composer." "Was?" His jaw tightened. "She died when I was 18. Serafina turned to look at him. For the first time, she saw something vulnerable in his face. Grief, old and deep. "I'm sorry," she said. "Do not be. Death comes for us all." He moved to the piano and sat down. "Now, let us begin." "Begin what?" "I need to hear your voice without walls, without fear." His fingers touched the keys. "Sing whatever comes to your mind." Serafina hesitated. "I need music. A song." "No, no songs. Just sound." He played a single note. "Match it." She opened her mouth and sang the note. It was clear but tentative. "Again. Louder." She sang louder. Damien shook his head. "You are still holding back." "I'm not. You are terrified of being heard." His eyes locked on hers. "Why?" The question hit her like a fist. Serafina's throat closed. "That's not true." "Then prove it." He played another note, higher this time. "Sing until you feel something break inside you." "That's insane." "That is art." He began to play, a wild, cascading melody that filled the room. Serafina felt it pull at something deep inside her chest. Before she could stop herself, she was singing. Not words, just sound, raw and aching and desperate. Her voice rose higher, louder. It felt like tearing open a wound she had spent years hiding. Tears burned her eyes, but she did not stop. She sang until her lungs screamed, until her throat felt like fire. And then, suddenly, she broke. The sound that came out of her was unlike anything she had ever made. It was pain and joy and rage all at once. It shattered through the room like glass. Damien stopped playing. Serafina collapsed to her knees, gasping. Her whole body trembled. She felt exposed, naked. Damien stood and walked over to her. He crouched down, his face inches from hers. "That," he said softly, "is your true voice." Serafina looked up at him through blurred vision. "It hurts." "Yes." "Why?" "Because truth always hurts." He reached out and brushed a tear from her cheek. His touch was gentle, but his eyes were fierce. "But it is also the only thing worth singing." She could not look away from him. In that moment, she understood why she was afraid. She was afraid of this, of feeling too much, of giving someone the power to destroy her. "I can't do this every night," she whispered. "You can, and you will." He stood and offered his hand. "Because you promised me your heart." Serafina took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. Her legs felt weak. "How long will this take?" she asked. "As long as it needs to." "That's not an answer." "It is the only answer I have." He released her hand and moved back to the piano. "We will meet here every night at midnight. You will sing until you have nothing left, and when you are empty, I will teach you how to fill yourself again." Serafina's chest tightened. "And then?" "And then you will be ready for the world." She wanted to argue, to tell him this was too much. But when she looked at him, she saw something that stopped her. He believed in her, completely, absolutely. No one had ever looked at her like that before. "All right," she said. Damien's mouth curved into a faint smile. "Good." But as Serafina left the estate that night, as the carriage carried her back through the dark forest, she could not shake the feeling that she had just made a deal with the devil. And somewhere in the shadows of the estate, the woman in the red cloak watched from a window. "Soon," she whispered to the darkness. Soon he will take what is his. 3 weeks passed like a fever dream. Every night Serafina returned to Damien's estate. Every night they worked until dawn. She sang until her voice cracked, until her body ached, until she thought she might collapse. And every night she felt herself changing. Her voice grew stronger, wilder. She learned to channel her pain, her fear, her desire into sound. Damien pushed her harder than anyone ever had. He was cruel in his precision, never satisfied, always demanding more. But he was also the only person who truly saw her. "Again," he would say when she faltered, "do not hide from me." And she would sing, even when it felt like dying. But there were moments, small, fleeting moments, when something else passed between them. Once, when she finished a particularly difficult piece, Damien stood and walked to her. He lifted her chin with one finger, studying her face. "You are extraordinary," he said quietly. Serafina's breath hitched. "Thank you." "Do not thank me. I am merely uncovering what was always there." But his hand lingered on her chin a moment too long. His thumb brushed the corner of her mouth. Then he pulled away, his expression shuttered. "That is enough for tonight." Serafina left feeling dizzy and confused. Another night, when exhaustion made her clumsy, she stumbled. Damien caught her before she fell. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her against his chest. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Serafina could feel his heartbeat against her back, fast and unsteady. His breath was warm against her ear. "Careful," he murmured. "I'm fine." But neither of them let go. Finally, Damien stepped back, his jaw tight. "You should rest." "I don't need rest." "You need more than you realize." There was something in his voice that made her shiver, like he was talking about more than sleep. As the days passed, Serafina began to notice other things. The servants who should have been there were absent. The rooms that should have been lived in were empty. And sometimes, late at night, she heard music coming from somewhere deep in the house. Not the piano in the studio. Something else. A melody so beautiful it made her chest ache. One night, after their session ended, Serafina could not resist. Instead of leaving, she followed the sound. It led her through dark hallways, down a flight of stairs she had not seen before. The music grew louder, sweeter. It wrapped around her like silk. Finally, she reached a door. Light spilled from beneath it. Serafina hesitated, then pushed it open. Inside was a workshop. Tables were covered with strange instruments, things she did not recognize. Glass tubes filled with colored liquid, mechanical devices that ticked and hummed. And in the center of the room, a music box. It was the most beautiful thing Serafina had ever seen. Gold and silver, inlaid with jewels. The melody came from inside it, pure and haunting. She stepped closer, drawn by the sound. "You should not be here." Serafina spun around. Damien stood in the doorway, his face pale with fury. "I heard the music," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to—" "Get out." "Damien." "Now!" His voice was like a whip. Serafina flinched, then turned and ran. She did not stop until she was outside, gasping in the cold night air. Her hands shook. She had never seen Damien like that, out of control, almost afraid. What was he hiding? The next night, she almost did not return. But when midnight came, she found herself in the carriage again, heading back to the estate. Damien was waiting for her in the music studio. His expression was calm, but there was tension in his shoulders. "I apologize for last night," he said stiffly. "What was that room?" "It does not concern you." "It does if I'm going to keep coming here." His eyes flashed. "You agreed to train with me, not to pry into my private affairs." "I'm not prying, I'm asking." "It is the same thing." They stared at each other, the air crackling between them. Finally, Damien exhaled. That room belonged to my mother. She built instruments, strange, beautiful things. His voice softened. The music box was her last creation. It's lovely. It is dangerous. Serafina frowned. What do you mean? Some things are better left alone. He moved to the piano and sat down. Now, shall we begin? But Serafina could not let it go. Why dangerous? Damien's hands hovered over the keys. For a long moment he was silent. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. My mother believed music could capture souls. She thought if she built the right instrument, she could preserve life itself. He looked up at Serafina, his eyes dark and haunted. She died trying to prove it. Serafina's blood turned to ice. What? She trapped herself inside the music box. Her voice, her essence, everything she was. His hands trembled. And I have spent the last 12 years trying to free her. The room felt too small, too cold. That's impossible, Serafina whispered. Is it? Damien stood and walked toward her. You have felt it, have you not? The way music can reach inside you, the way it can change you. That's not the same as trapping a soul, isn't it? His gaze held hers, and Serafina felt something shift inside her. Fear, fascination, something else she could not name. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Damien's expression was unreadable. Because I made you a promise. I said I would give you my heart. He stepped closer, so close she could feel the heat of his body. But what I did not tell you is that I need something from you in return. What? Your voice. The world tilted. Serafina stepped back. What are you talking about? I have tried everything to free my mother, every spell, every ritual, but nothing works. His voice was desperate now, raw. Except you. Me? Your voice is unlike anything I have ever heard. It has power, real power. He reached for her, but she jerked away. If you sing into the music box, you can break the spell. You can free her. Serafina's heart hammered. And what happens to me? Damien hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. No, she breathed. No, you can't. It will not harm you, he said quickly. Only borrow your voice, temporarily. Liar. The word hung between them like a blade. Damien's face crumpled. Please, you do not understand. She is trapped, suffering. I can hear her every night crying out. So you thought you would trap me instead? I did not mean. But Serafina was already running. She fled through the halls, down the stairs, out into the night. Her vision blurred with tears. Her chest felt like it was caving in. Behind her, Damien's voice echoed through the darkness. Serafina, wait! But she did not stop. She ran until she could not breathe, until her legs gave out. She collapsed in the forest, sobbing. He had lied to her, used her, and she had been too blind to see it. But even as she cried, even as rage burned through her, she could not forget the look in his eyes, the desperation, the pain. What if he was telling the truth? What if his mother really was trapped? And what if Serafina was the only one who could save her? The question followed her all the way home. And somewhere in the shadows, the woman in the red cloak smiled. Perfect, she whispered. Everything is falling into place. Serafina did not return to the estate for 3 days. She locked herself in her small apartment above a bakery and tried to forget everything. The music, the studio, Damien's eyes when he begged her to help. But she could not forget. His voice haunted her dreams, his touch lingered on her skin, and every time she closed her eyes, she saw the music box, beautiful and terrible, humming with trapped life. On the third night, someone knocked on her door. Serafina froze. It was past midnight. No one visited her this late. The knocking came again, harder. She crept to the door and pressed her ear against it. "Who's there?" "A friend." The voice was female, low and smooth. Serafina opened the door a crack. A woman stood in the hallway, dressed in a red cloak. Her face was pale and striking, with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes. She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Who are you?" Serafina asked. "My name is Lilith. I work for Damien Vale." Serafina's stomach dropped. "I don't want to see him." "I know. That is why he sent me." Lilith tilted her head. "May I come in? What I have to say is not for the hallway." Every instinct told Serafina to slam the door, but curiosity won. She stepped aside. Lilith entered gracefully, her cloak sweeping the floor. She studied the small room, the narrow bed, the single chair, the window that looked out over the street. "Charming," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "What do you want?" Serafina crossed her arms. Lilith turned to face her. "Damien is a fool, but he is not a liar." "He tried to steal my voice." "No, he tried to save his mother." Lilith's expression hardened. "There is a difference." "Not to me." "Then you are selfish." The words stung. Serafina glared at her. "How dare you?" "His mother is not dead, girl. She is trapped in agony, every day, every night, screaming inside that box with no way out." Lilith stepped closer. "Damien has sacrificed everything to try to free her. His fortune, his sanity, his life. That's not my problem." "Isn't it?" Lilith's eyes glittered. "You are the first person in 12 years whose voice has the power to break the spell, and you are too afraid to try." "I'm not afraid. You are terrified. Of pain, of loss, of giving too much." Lilith's voice was soft now, almost kind. "But let me tell you something, Serafina. If you do not help him, Damien will destroy himself. He will keep searching, keep experimenting, until there is nothing left of him." Serafina's throat tightened. "Why do you care?" "Because I loved him once." Lilith's smile was bitter. "And because I know what it is to lose someone you cannot save." The room fell silent. Serafina sat down on the edge of her bed, her head spinning. "What happens if I sing into the music box?" she asked quietly. Lilith hesitated. "Your voice will be bound to it, for a time." "How long?" "I do not know." "Will it hurt?" "I do not know that either." Serafina looked up at her. "Then why should I risk it?" Lilith crouched down so they were eye to eye. "Because love is always a risk, and whether you admit it or not, you care for him." "I don't." "Do not lie to me. I see the way you tremble when you speak his name." Lilith's gaze was piercing. "He gave you his heart, Serafina. The question is, will you give him yours?" Serafina's breath caught. She wanted to deny it, but the truth was there, undeniable and terrifying. She did care for Damien. Against all reason, against all logic, she had fallen for him. "If I do this," she said slowly, "and something goes wrong, then I will find a way to fix it." Lilith stood. "You have my word." "Why would I trust you?" "Because you have no one else." It was brutal and true. Serafina had no family, no friends who understood. She was alone in the world, except for Damien. "I need time to think," she said. Lilith nodded. "You have until tomorrow night. After that, it will be too late." "Why?" "Because Damien is planning to try the ritual himself, with his own voice." Lilith's expression darkened. "And if he does, it will kill him." Serafina's heart stopped. "What?" "The spell requires a pure voice. His is broken. damaged by guilt. Lilith moved toward the door. If you care for him at all, you will stop him. She swept out of the room, leaving Serafina alone with her thoughts. And for the first time, Serafina realized the truth. This was never about her voice. It was about choice, about whether she was brave enough to risk everything for someone else. She thought about Damien's hands on the piano, the way he looked at her when she sang, the way his voice broke when he talked about his mother. She thought about the music box, humming with trapped life, and she made her decision. Serafina returned to the estate the next night. The gates stood open, waiting. The house was dark except for one light in the tower window. She climbed the stairs with her heart in her throat. The music box's melody drifted through the air, sweet and mournful. When she reached the workshop, she stopped. Damien stood in front of the music box, his hands trembling. He was dressed in black, his hair disheveled. He looked like he had not slept in days. "Don't," Serafina said. He spun around, his eyes widening. "Serafina!" "Lilith told me what you're planning." She stepped into the room. "You can't do it. It will kill you." "Better me than her." "That's not your choice to make." "She is my mother," his voice cracked. "I am the reason she is trapped. I was the one who begged her to build the box. I was the one who—" He broke off, pressing his hands to his face. "This is my fault." Serafina's chest ached. She walked over to him and gently pulled his hands away. His eyes were red, haunted. "It's not your fault," she said softly. "You were a child. You didn't know. I should have stopped her." "You couldn't have." He looked at her like she was the only solid thing in the world. "Why did you come back?" "Because I made you a promise." She took a breath. "I will give you my heart, but not as payment, as a gift." Damien's expression shattered. "You don't have to—" "I know." She cupped his face in her hands. "But I want to." For a long moment they stood there, foreheads pressed together. The world shrank to just the two of them. Then Serafina stepped back. "Tell me what to do." Damien hesitated, then nodded. He led her to the music box and opened it. Inside, the mechanism was impossibly intricate, gears and crystals and threads of silver light. "You have to sing directly into it," he said. "The melody my mother used to sing. I'll teach it to you." He hummed the tune. It was simple but haunting, filled with longing and love. Serafina listened, memorizing every note. "When you sing," Damien continued, "the box will begin to glow. Do not stop, no matter what you feel. If you stop too soon, the spell will fail." "And if it works?" "Then my mother will be free, and you—" He swallowed hard. "Your voice will be bound to the box for 3 days. After that, it will return to you." "You're sure?" "No." His honesty cut through her. Serafina nodded. "All right." She knelt in front of the music box. Her hands shook as she reached for it. Damien knelt beside her, his presence a steady anchor. "I'm here," he said quietly. "I will not leave you." Serafina looked at him one last time. Then she opened her mouth and sang. The melody poured out of her, pure and aching. The music box began to glow, soft at first, then brighter. Light spilled from the crystals inside, filling the room. Serafina kept singing. She felt the magic pull at her, wrapping around her throat like silk. It did not hurt, but it felt strange, like something was being gently lifted from her chest. The light grew blinding. Damien shielded his eyes, but he did not move away. And then, suddenly, the music box cracked open. A figure rose from inside, translucent and shimmering. A woman with long, dark hair and kind eyes. She looked at Damien, and her expression filled with love. "My son," she whispered. Damien's face crumpled. "Mother." She reached for him, but her hand passed through his cheek like mist. "You have to let me go." "I can't." "You must." Her gaze shifted to Serafina. "Thank you, child. You have freed me." Serafina tried to speak, but no sound came. Her voice was gone. The woman smiled sadly. "It will return. Be patient." Then she began to fade. Damien reached for her desperately, but there was nothing to hold. She dissolved into light, and then into nothing. The room fell silent. Damien collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Serafina wanted to comfort him, but she could not speak. Instead, she wrapped her arms around him and held him as he broke. They stayed like that for a long time. Finally, Damien pulled back. His face was wet with tears, but there was something different in his eyes. Relief. Peace. "She's free," he whispered. Serafina nodded. He looked at her, then his expression shifted to horror. "Your voice." She touched her throat and shook her head. "It's all right," she wanted to say, but no words came. Damien's hands covered hers. 3 days. I swear it will return in 3 days. She believed him, or at least she wanted to. But as they sat together in the quiet workshop, neither of them noticed the shadow in the doorway. Lilith watched them with cold eyes, and in her hand she held a small silver key. "Fools," she whispered. "The spell is only half broken." Then she disappeared into the night, taking the key with her. Serafina woke in an unfamiliar bed. Soft sheets, the smell of lavender. Sunlight streamed through tall windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. The ritual, the music box, the woman made of light. Her voice. She touched her throat. Still nothing. Panic rose in her chest, but she forced it down. 3 days, Damien had said. She just had to wait. The door opened. Damien entered, carrying a tray with tea and bread. He looked exhausted, but his expression softened when he saw her awake. "How do you feel?" he asked. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Frustrated, she gestured at her throat. "I know." He set the tray on the bedside table and sat down beside her. "I'm sorry. I wish there had been another way." Serafina shook her head. She reached for his hand and squeezed it. "I chose this," she wanted to tell him. "Don't blame yourself." Damien seemed to understand. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. The gesture was so tender it made her chest ache. "You saved her," he said quietly. "For 12 years I tried everything, and you did it in one night." His eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I owe you everything." Serafina touched his face. "No," she thought, "you owe me nothing." But she could not say the words. The next 3 days passed in a strange, dreamlike haze. Damien did not leave her side. He brought her meals, kept her company, taught her simple hand gestures so they could communicate. At night, they sat together in the music studio. Damien played the piano, and Serafina listened. She had never realized how much she relied on her voice until it was gone. Without it, she felt half invisible, like a ghost in her own life. But there were moments of beauty, too. Once, Damien played a lullaby his mother used to sing. Serafina closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. When she opened them, Damien was watching her with an expression that made her breath catch. "What?" she mouthed. "You are beautiful," he said simply, even in silence. Her heart stuttered. She wanted to tell him that he was beautiful too, that she had never met anyone who understood her the way he did, that somewhere along the way she had fallen in love with him. But she could not. So instead, she leaned forward and kissed him. Damien froze. For a heartbeat, he did not move. Then his hands came up to cradle her face, and he kissed her back. It was soft at first, tentative. But then something ignited between them, desperate and hungry. Serafina's fingers tangled in his hair. Damien pulled her closer, his mouth claiming hers like he was drowning and she was air. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. "Serafina," he whispered. She pressed a finger to his lips. "Not yet," she thought. "Wait until I can tell you properly." He nodded, understanding. But that night, as Serafina lay in bed, she felt a creeping sense of unease. 3 days had almost passed. Her voice should return tomorrow. But what if it didn't? What if the spell had taken more than Damien realized? She tried to push the fear away, but it clung to her like smoke. The next morning, Serafina woke and immediately tried to speak. Nothing. She tried again. Still nothing. Panic clawed at her chest. She ran to find Damien. He was in the workshop, studying the music box with a frown. When he saw her face, his expression darkened. It didn't return. She shook her head frantically. Damn it. He ran a hand through his hair. The spell should have released you by now. Serafina grabbed his arm, her eyes desperate. Fix it, she wanted to scream. Please! I will. His voice was fierce. I swear to you, I will fix this. He spent the entire day searching through his mother's notes, looking for answers. Serafina paced the room, her throat tight with fear. Finally, as the sun set, Damien looked up. His face was pale. There's something missing, he said. A piece of the spell my mother never wrote down. Serafina's stomach dropped. But I know someone who might have it. He hesitated. Lilith. At the mention of her name, Serafina felt a chill. There was something about that woman she did not trust. I'll send for her, Damien said. She'll know what to do. But when the messenger returned an hour later, he was alone. She's gone, sir, the boy said. Her house is empty. No one's seen her for days. Damien's face went white. What? Serafina's heart sank. She knew, with cold certainty, that Lilith had not left by accident. She had taken something they needed. And now Serafina was trapped in silence, possibly forever. It took 2 days to track Lilith down. 2 days of searching, bribing informants, following rumors. Finally, they found her in a rundown theater on the edge of the city. Damien and Serafina entered together. The theater was dark and smelled of mildew. A single candle burned on the stage. Lilith stood in the center, dressed in her red cloak. She smiled when she saw them. I was wondering when you would come, she said. Where is it? Damien's voice was cold. Where is what? The key, the final piece of the spell. Lilith's smile widened. Ah, that. She pulled a small silver key from her pocket and held it up. It glinted in the candlelight. Why did you take it? Damien demanded. Because you are a fool, Damien Vale. Lilith's expression hardened. You freed your mother, but you never asked what the spell would cost. I know the cost. Serafina's voice is gone forever. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Serafina felt the ground tilt beneath her. No, that couldn't be true. You're lying, Damien said, but his voice shook. I am not. Your mother's spell required a trade, a voice for a life. She knew that when she built the box. Lilith's gaze shifted to Serafina. And now this foolish girl has paid the price. Serafina's hands curled into fists. She wanted to scream, but no sound came. Give me the key, Damien said. I'll find a way to reverse it. There is no reversal. The spell is complete. Lilith laughed bitterly. But if you want the key, you can have it. For a price. Name it. You. Damien went still. What? I loved you once, Damien. I would have done anything for you. Lilith's voice cracked. But you threw me aside. Cast me out like I was nothing. That's not... You did. And now I am offering you a choice. She held up the key. Marry me, and I will give you the key. Perhaps it will not restore her voice, but it might ease her suffering. Serafina's heart stopped. She looked at Damien, her eyes wide. "Don't," she wanted to say. "Don't do it." But Damien was already stepping forward. "If I marry you, you'll give me the key?" "Yes." "And you'll leave Serafina alone?" "I have no quarrel with her, only with you." Serafina grabbed Damien's arm, shaking her head desperately. "No, please, no." He looked down at her, his expression filled with anguish. "I have to. I can't let you suffer because of me." She shook her head again, tears streaming down her face. She pressed her hand to his chest, right over his heart. "I love you," she wanted to say. "Don't leave me." But the words would not come. Damien pulled her into a fierce embrace. His lips brushed her ear. "I will find a way back to you," he whispered. "I swear it." Then he released her and turned to Lilith. "I agree." Lilith's smile was triumphant. She tossed him the key. "The wedding will be in 3 days." Damien caught the key and looked at Serafina one last time. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. Then he walked out of the theatre with Lilith, leaving Serafina alone in the dark. She collapsed to her knees, silent sobs racking her body. She had lost everything: her voice, her love, her future. But as she knelt there in the darkness, something sparked inside her. Not despair, rage. Lilith had lied. Serafina was sure of it. There had to be a way to break the spell, and if there was, she would find it, even if it killed her. She stood, wiping her tears. She would not give up. Not now, not ever. Because Damien had given her his heart, and she would not let Lilith take it. Serafina returned to Damien's estate alone. The house felt empty without him, cold. But she did not have time to grieve. She went straight to the workshop and began searching. If there was a way to reverse the spell, it would be in his mother's notes. She spent hours sifting through papers, books, diagrams. Her eyes burned from reading by candlelight, but she did not stop. Finally, just before dawn, she found something. A letter, written in elegant script. "My dearest Damien, if you are reading this, then I am gone. Trapped, perhaps, or dead. But know that I did not build the music box lightly. The spell is powerful, but it is not without mercy. A voice given freely can be reclaimed, but only if the one who took it offers it back. Love is the key, always. Mother." Serafina's heart raced. A voice given freely can be reclaimed. That meant there was hope. But she had to convince Damien to give her voice back willingly, and he had agreed to marry Lilith. She had 3 days. Serafina spent the next day preparing. She could not speak, but she could write. She penned a letter explaining everything: the truth about the spell, the way to reverse it, and her feelings for Damien. Then she went to find him. Lilith had taken him to her estate on the other side of the city. It was smaller than Damien's, but no less grand. Guards stood at the gate. Serafina approached, holding up her letter. The guards looked at her with suspicion. "I need to see Damien Vale," she wrote on a piece of paper. "He's busy," one guard said. She wrote again. "It's urgent." "Sorry, Lady Lilith's orders, no visitors." Serafina's frustration boiled over. She tried to push past them, but they grabbed her arms and pulled her back. "Leave, or we'll have you arrested." She struggled, but it was useless. Finally, defeated, she turned and walked away. But she did not give up. That night she returned. This time she did not go to the front gate. She circled around to the back of the estate, looking for another way in. She found a garden wall. It was high, but not impossible. Serafina hitched up her skirts and began to climb. Her hands scraped against the stone. Her arms shook with effort, but she kept going. Finally, she hauled herself over the top and dropped into the garden below. The estate was dark. Serafina crept through the shadows, her heart pounding. She did not know which room was Damien's, so she tried window after window. Finally, she found one that was open. She slipped inside and found herself in a library. Shelves lined the walls, filled with dusty books. A fire crackled in the hearth, and sitting in a chair by the fire was Damien. He looked up, startled. "Serafina?" She rushed to him, pulling out her letter. He took it, his brow furrowed, and began to read. As he read, his expression shifted: confusion, hope, and finally, anguish. "You can reclaim your voice?" he whispered. She nodded. "But only if I offer it back willingly." Another nod. He stood, gripping the letter. "Then I'll do it, right now." But before he could move, the door burst open. Lilith stood in the doorway, her face twisted with fury. "What is she doing here?" "Serafina found a way to reverse the spell," Damien said quickly. "I can give her voice back." "No." The word was flat and final. Damien stared at her. "What?" "You agreed to marry me. That was the deal." Lilith's eyes were cold. "If you break it, I will make sure she never sings again." "You don't have that power." "Don't I?" Lilith stepped closer. "The key I gave you was a fake. The real key is still in my possession. And without it, the spell cannot be reversed." Serafina's heart sank. She had been tricked. Damien's face went white. "You lied." "I did what I had to." Lilith's voice softened. "I love you, Damien. I always have. And I will not let you throw that away for some girl you barely know." "She is not just some girl." Damien's voice was fierce. "I love her." The words hung in the air. Serafina's breath caught. He loved her. He had said it out loud. Lilith's expression shattered. "You love her?" "Yes." For a moment, Lilith looked lost, broken. Then her face hardened into something cruel. "Then you will watch her suffer," she said. "Every day, for the rest of her life." She turned and walked out, slamming the door behind her. Damien immediately went to Serafina and pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry." Serafina clung to him, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. It was over. There was no way to fix this. But then, from somewhere deep inside her, a spark of defiance flared. No, she would not let Lilith win. She pulled back and looked into Damien's eyes. She pointed to herself, then to him, then pressed her hand over her heart. "I will find a way," she wanted to say. "I promise." Damien seemed to understand. He cupped her face in his hands. "We'll find a way together." And in that moment, Serafina knew. No matter what it took, no matter how long it took, she would reclaim her voice, and she would make Lilith pay. The wedding was set for the following evening. Serafina spent the day planning. She could not confront Lilith directly. The woman was too powerful, too protected. But there had to be a weakness. Everyone had one. Serafina thought back to everything Lilith had said, the way she talked about Damien, the bitterness in her voice when she spoke of being cast aside. Lilith was not acting out of malice. She was acting out of pain. That was her weakness. Serafina spent hours crafting a plan. It was risky, dangerous, but it was the only chance she had. As the sun set, she dressed in her finest gown, the blue silk her mother had made. She tied her hair back and took a deep breath. Then she went to the wedding. The ceremony was held in Lilith's estate, in a grand ballroom filled with flowers and candles. Guests milled about, dressed in their finest, but the atmosphere was tense. Everyone knew this marriage was a sham. Serafina slipped in through a side door and hid in the shadows. She watched as Damien entered, his face pale and expressionless. He wore a black suit, but he looked like a man walking to his execution. Lilith stood at the altar, radiant in a white gown, but her eyes were hollow. The officiant began the ceremony. Serafina waited, her heart pounding. Finally, the officiant spoke the words she had been waiting for. "If anyone objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." Serafina stepped out of the shadows. Every head turned. Gasps echoed through the room. Damien's eyes widened. Lilith's face twisted with fury. "Get her out of here!" But Serafina did not move. She pulled a piece of paper from her pocket and held it up. Damien crossed the room and took it. His eyes scanned the words, and his expression shifted to shock. "Read it aloud," Serafina had written. "Please." Damien looked at Lilith, then back at the paper. He began to read. "Lilith, you say you love Damien. But love is not possession. Love is not control." His voice grew stronger. "You had his heart once, but you broke it when you chose power over trust. And now you are trying to steal what you lost." Lilith's face went pale. "Stop!" But Damien kept reading. "I do not ask you to give me my voice back for my sake. I ask you to do it for his. Because if you truly love him, you will let him choose his own path." The room was silent. Lilith stared at Serafina, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "You don't understand." Serafina walked forward. She stood in front of Lilith and gently took her hands. Then she did something unexpected. She forgave her. She squeezed Lilith's hands, her expression soft. No words, just compassion. Lilith's composure crumbled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I just wanted him to see me." Serafina nodded. "I know." "But he never did." Serafina shook her head. She pointed at Damien, then back at Lilith, then made a gesture over her heart. "He does see you, but not the way you want." Lilith let out a choked sob. "I can't let you have him." Serafina stepped closer. She placed a hand on Lilith's cheek, her eyes pleading. "Please." For a long moment, Lilith did not move. Then, slowly, she reached into her gown and pulled out a silver key, the real one. "If I do this," she whispered, "you have to promise me something." Serafina nodded. "Take care of him. Do not break his heart." Serafina pressed her hand over her heart. "I swear." Lilith closed her eyes, then handed her the key. The moment Serafina's fingers touched it, warmth flooded through her. The key glowed, bright and golden. She felt something shift inside her chest, a knot loosening, a weight lifting. And then, suddenly, she gasped. Sound. She could make sound. "Damien," she whispered. His head snapped up. His eyes went wide. Then he was running, crossing the room in 3 strides. He swept her into his arms, lifting her off the ground. "Say it again," he breathed. "Damien," she laughed, the sound shaky and wonderful. "Damien, I love you." He kissed her, fierce and desperate and joyful. The room erupted in applause, but neither of them heard it. When they finally broke apart, Serafina turned to Lilith. The woman stood alone, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," Serafina said softly. Lilith nodded. Then, without a word, she turned and walked out of the ballroom. Serafina watched her go, her heart aching. She hoped, someday, Lilith would find the love she deserved. But for now, she had her voice, she had Damien, and she had a future bright with possibility. 3 months later, Serafina stood on the stage of the Vienna Opera House. The theatre was packed, every seat filled, every balcony overflowing. The air hummed with anticipation. Backstage, Damien adjusted her gown. His hands were gentle, but his eyes were bright with pride. "Nervous?" he asked. "Terrified," she admitted. "Good. That means you care." He kissed her forehead. "Now go out there and show them what you can do." Serafina took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The lights were blinding. The audience stretched out before her, a sea of faces. For a moment, fear threatened to choke her. Then she thought of everything she had been through. The music box, the silence, the fight to reclaim her voice. She had survived. She had won. And now, she would sing. She opened her mouth, and the first note poured out. It was clear and strong and full of life. The audience leaned forward, captivated. Serafina sang like her soul depended on it. She poured every ounce of pain, joy, love, and hope into the melody. The music wrapped around the theatre, filling every corner. When she finished, the silence was deafening. Then the applause began. It started as a ripple, then grew into a roar. People stood, clapping and cheering. Some were crying. Serafina looked out at them, her heart full. She had done it. She had become the singer she was always meant to be. And when she looked into the wings, she saw Damien watching her. His eyes were bright with tears, and his smile was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. After the performance, they walked through the streets of Vienna together. The city glittered under the stars. Serafina's hand was tucked into Damien's, and for the first time in her life, she felt completely at peace. "What will you do now?" Damien asked. "Sing," she said simply. "Everywhere. For everyone." "And what about us?" She stopped and turned to face him. "What about us?" He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a ring, simple and silver, with a single blue stone. "Marry me," he said. "Not because of a bargain or a spell, but because I love you, because I cannot imagine my life without you." Serafina's breath caught. Tears filled her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, soft and sweet. Around them, the city seemed to glow. They were married a month later, in a small ceremony surrounded by friends. Serafina wore her mother's blue dress. Damien wore a smile that never faded. And when she sang at their wedding, a song she had written just for him, there was not a dry eye in the room. Years later, when Serafina was old and grey, people still talked about her voice. They said it could move mountains, that it could heal broken hearts. But Serafina knew the truth. Her voice was not special because of magic or spells. It was special because she had fought for it, because she had learned that true strength came not from never falling, but from choosing to rise. She and Damien lived a long and happy life. They travelled the world. She sang on every great stage. He composed music that made the stars weep. And every night, before they went to sleep, he would take her hand and say, "I will give you my heart." And she would smile and reply, "You already have." Because love, they had learned, was not about taking, it was about giving freely. It was about trust and sacrifice and choosing each other every single day. And Serafina's voice, the voice that had once been stolen, echoed through the years, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope could be found, as long as you were brave enough to sing.